Crash landing. The vast emptiness of space shattered as Zara's ship hurtled through Earth's atmosphere, trailing fire and debris. Alarms blared inside the cockpit, their urgent wails drowned out by the roar of superheated air rushing past the failing hull. Zara, the lone occupant of the small scout vessel, fought desperately with the controls, her four arms working in perfect synchronization as she tried to salvage what was left of her doomed craft. Come on, she muttered, her voice a mix of determination and fear. The ship's AI had gone offline minutes ago, leaving her to navigate the unpredictable descent alone. Through the viewport, she could see the planet's surface rushing up to meet her, a patchwork of greens and browns that grew more detailed with each passing second. With a final, bone-jarring impact, the ship plowed into the earth, carving a deep furrow through a dense forest, before coming to rest in a small clearing. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of cooling metal and the gentle patter of disturbed leaves settling back to the ground. Inside the wreckage, Zara hung limply in her harness, her iridescent skin dulled with dust and streaked with a silvery fluid, her species equivalent of blood. Slowly, painfully, she raised her head, blinking all four of her eyes in an attempt to clear her blurred vision. Status report, she croaked out of habit, before remembering that the ship's systems were dead. With trembling hands, she unclasped her harness and half fell, half climbed out of the shattered cockpit. The moment Zara's feet touched the ground, she knew something was wrong. The gravity pulled at her with an unfamiliar intensity, making her usually graceful movements clumsy and labored. The air, thick with unfamiliar scents, burned in her lungs with each breath. She stumbled away from the wreckage, her body screaming in protest with each step. By the stars, she gasped, leaning against a tree for support. What kind of hellworld is this? As if in answer, a distant howl echoed through the forest, sending a shiver down Zora's spine. She had studied countless alien worlds during her career as a xenobiologist, but nothing had prepared her for the raw, untamed nature of Earth. Every instinct screamed at her to find shelter, to hide from the myriad dangers that surely lurked in this alien environment. With renewed determination, Zara forced herself to move. She needed to salvage what she could from the ship and find a defensible position before night fell. As she worked, pulling emergency supplies and equipment from the wreckage, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Hours passed, and Zara managed to construct a rudimentary shelter using pieces of the ship's hull and some local vegetation. As darkness fell, she huddled inside, clutching a makeshift weapon fashioned from a piece of twisted metal. The night was alive with sounds, chirping insects, rustling leaves, and occasionally something that sounded disturbingly like heavy footsteps. Just as exhaustion began to overtake her, a new sound cut through the night, a rhythmic crunching of leaves underfoot, too regular to be an animal. Zara's heart raced as she peered out of her shelter, her eyes straining in the darkness. A beam of light suddenly cut through the gloom, sweeping across the clearing before settling on the wreckage of her ship. Zara held her breath as a figure emerged from the tree line. Bipedal, wrapped in some kind of protective gear, with a light source mounted on its head. "Hello," a voice called out, the unfamiliar language somehow translated by Zora's neural implant. "Is anyone there? I saw something come down in this area." Zara's mind raced. First contact with an alien species was always a delicate situation, and she was in no condition to handle it with the proper protocols. But as another howl echoed in the distance, closer this time, she realized she might not have a choice. Slowly, cautiously, Zara emerged from her shelter. Hello," she called back, her voice shaky but clear. "I'm here. Please, I need help." The beam of light swung towards her, momentarily blinding her sensitive eyes. She heard a sharp intake of breath, followed by a string of words her implant couldn't quite parse. Exclamations of surprise, perhaps. "Holy. You're not human," the voice said, a mix of awe and fear evident in its tone. "No," Zora replied, trying to keep her voice calm and non-threatening. I'm not. My name is Zara. I'm a visitor to your world, though not by choice. My ship, she gestured towards the wreckage. The light lowered, and Zara could finally make out the figure holding it. It was shorter than her, with a round head and 2 arms. The being pulled off the covering on its head, revealing a face that was both alien and somehow familiar. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth full of flat teeth. I'm Dr. Alex Chen, the human said, his voice steadier now. I'm a wildlife researcher. I was tracking wolf movements in the area when I saw your ship come down. He paused, seeming to struggle with what to say next. Are you injured? Do you need medical attention? Zara nodded, the motion sending a fresh wave of pain through her body. Yes, I think so, but I don't know if your medicine would work on me. Our biologies are likely very different. Dr. Chen seemed to consider this for a moment before nodding. Right, of course. Well, we can't stay here. It's not safe, especially at night. My research station isn't far. We can go there, try to figure out what to do next. Can you walk? Zara took a tentative step forward, wincing at the pain, but managing to stay upright. I can manage. But why are you helping me? Aren't you afraid? A small smile crossed Dr. Chen's face. Terrified, actually, but you're clearly in need. And, well, I became a scientist to explore the unknown. Can't get much more unknown than this, can we? As they made their way through the dark forest, Zora marveled at the human's resilience and adaptability. Here he was faced with an alien life form, and instead of running in fear, he was offering help. Perhaps, she thought, there was more to these humans than her initial impression of their harsh world suggested. Little did either of them know that their chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would challenge both their species and change the course of Earth's history forever. Unlikely alliance. The trek through the dense forest was arduous, each step a battle against Earth's unforgiving gravity and Zara's own battered body. Dr. Alex Chen led the way, his headlamp cutting a path through the darkness, occasionally glancing back to ensure his alien companion was keeping up. We're almost there, he called over his shoulder, his voice a mix of excitement and concern. Just a little further. Zara nodded, too exhausted to respond verbally. Her mind raced with questions and observations about this strange world and its even stranger inhabitant. Despite her extensive training in xenobiology, nothing could have prepared her for the reality of first contact, especially under these circumstances. As they emerged from the tree line, a small clearing came into view. In its center stood a modest structure, Dr. Chen's research station. It was a far cry from the sleek, advanced facilities Zora was accustomed to. But at that moment, it looked like salvation. Home sweet home, Dr. Chen said with a nervous chuckle as he unlocked the door. It's not much, but it's secure and off the grid. Should give us some time to figure things out. The interior of the station was cluttered but organized, filled with scientific equipment, maps, and stacks of handwritten notes. Zara's eyes darted from object to object, her scientist's mind cataloging everything despite her exhaustion. Here, sit down, Dr. Chen said, clearing off a chair. Let me take a look at those injuries. Zara hesitated, her instincts warring between the need for help and the ingrained caution about exposing vulnerabilities to an unknown species. But as another wave of pain washed over her, she relented, sinking into the offered chair. Dr. Chen approached cautiously, a first aid kit in hand. I'm not sure how much I can do, he admitted. Your physiology is unlike anything I've ever seen, but maybe we can start with cleaning those wounds. As he worked, applying antiseptic to her cuts with gentle, steady hands, Zara found herself studying him intently. You're remarkably calm for someone in your position, she observed. Most species would react with fear or aggression to an alien encounter. A wry smile crossed Dr. Chen's face. Oh, believe me, I'm terrified. But also fascinated. I spent my life studying the diversity of life on Earth, always wondering if there was more out there. And now, Here you are. He paused, meeting her gaze. I have so many questions. As do I, Zara replied. Your world is harsh by the standards of my people. The gravity, the atmosphere, the sheer variety of potential threats. How do you survive here? Dr. Chen's smile widened. That's what makes Earth so amazing. Life here has had to adapt to countless challenges. It's made us resilient, resourceful. We've learned to thrive in environments that might seem impossible to outsiders. As they talked, the initial tension between them began to ease. Zara found herself impressed by the human's quick mind and genuine curiosity, while Dr. Chen was captivated by the glimpses of advanced knowledge and technology that Zara's words revealed. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a distant sound, the rhythmic thump of helicopter blades cutting through the night air. Dr. Chen's face paled. That's not good. There shouldn't be any air traffic out here, especially not at night. Zara stood, wincing at the movement. Could it be a search party? For my ship? Possibly, Dr. Chen replied, moving to the window. But how would they know to look here? And so quickly. He turned back to Zara, his expression grave. We need to move. If someone is looking for you, I don't think it's for a friendly chat. The reality of their situation came crashing down on Zara. She was injured, stranded on an alien world, and now potentially being hunted. Her chances of survival alone were slim. She looked at Dr. Chen, seeing the conflict in his eyes, the risk he was taking by helping her. You don't have to do this, she said softly. You could turn me in. Save yourself from whatever trouble is coming. Dr. Chen shook his head firmly. No, that's not who I am, and it's not what humanity should stand for. You're a sentient being in need of help. What kind of scientist, what kind of person would I be if I abandoned you? His words stirred something in Zara, a mix of gratitude and newfound respect for this human, and by extension, his species. Thank you, she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. Don't thank me yet, Dr. Chen replied with a grim smile. We've still got to get out of here alive. Grab whatever supplies you can carry. I know these woods better than anyone. If we can make it to the old mine systems to the north, we might have a chance to lose them. As they hurriedly packed essentials, food, water, medical supplies, and some of Dr. Chen's research equipment, Zara couldn't help but marvel at the strange turn of events. Here she was, forming an alliance with a member of a species she had only just encountered, preparing to flee from unknown pursuers across a deadly alien landscape. The sound of the helicopter grew louder, accompanied now by the distant rumble of vehicles. Dr. Chen extinguished all lights in the station and led Zara to a back exit. Stay close to me, he whispered as they slipped into the darkness of the forest. The terrain is treacherous, especially at night, but it's our best chance. As they moved through the underbrush, Zara found herself relying more and more on her human companion. Dr. Chen navigated the difficult terrain with an ease born of long experience, helping her over fallen logs and warning her of hidden pitfalls. The pursuit behind them grew more intense. Shouts could be heard now, along with the beams of powerful searchlights cutting through the trees. Zara's heart raced with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Despite the danger, there was something exhilarating about this desperate flight, about placing her trust in this alien being who had chosen to stand by her side. There, Dr. Chen hissed, pointing to a dark opening in a rocky hillside. The old mine entrance. If we can make it inside, we might be able to lose them in the tunnel system. They scrambled towards the entrance, the sounds of pursuit growing ever closer. Just as they reached the mine, a searchlight swept over them. Shouts of discovery filled the air. Go, Dr. Chen yelled, pushing Zara into the darkness of the mine. He paused at the entrance, grabbing a handful of small devices from his pack. What are you doing? Zara asked, her voice urgent. Buying us some time, he replied with a grim smile. He activated the devices, some kind of scientific sensors, Zara realized, and tossed them in various directions outside the mine entrance. They'll give off heat signatures, maybe confuse their thermal imaging for a bit. As they plunged deeper into the darkness of the mine, guided only by the dim light of Dr. Chen's headlamp, Zara felt a newfound appreciation for human ingenuity. Perhaps, she thought, she had underestimated the species and the world that had shaped them. The unlikely alliance between human and alien was about to be tested as they ventured into the unknown depths, their pursuers close behind. But in the face of adversity, both Zara and Dr. Chen were beginning to realize that together, they might just have a chance at survival, and perhaps even more. The hunt begins. The darkness of the mine enveloped Zara and Dr. Chen like a thick, suffocating blanket. The only sounds were their labored breathing and the distant echoes of their pursuers at the mine's entrance. Dr. Chen's headlamp provided a narrow beam of light, barely illuminating the rough-hewn tunnel ahead of them. "We need to keep moving," Dr. Chen whispered, his voice tight with tension. "These tunnels are extensive, but they're also dangerous. Stay close to me and watch your step." Zara nodded, her 4 eyes straining to adjust to the low light. The oppressive weight of the earth above them added to the alien feeling of this world. On her home planet, such enclosed spaces were rare and generally avoided. As they ventured deeper into the mine, the sounds of pursuit gradually faded, replaced by the eerie stillness of the underground. Occasionally, they would hear the skittering of small creatures or the distant drip of water, each noise sending a jolt of adrenaline through their bodies. "Alex," Zora said softly, using the human's first name for the first time, "who do you think is after us? And how did they find us so quickly?" Dr. Chen's pace slowed as he considered the question. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "But the speed and resources of the response, it has to be either a government agency or a very powerful private organization." As they continued through the winding tunnels, Dr. Chen explained further. "There are groups within our government and private sector that have long been preparing for the possibility of alien contact, some with peaceful intentions, others not so much." Zara processed this information, her scientific mind racing. "Your species hasn't achieved interstellar travel yet, has it? How could you be prepared for something you weren't sure existed?" A wry smile crossed Dr. Chen's face, visible in the dim light of his headlamp. "Humanity has a long history of preparing for the unknown. Sometimes it's out of hope, sometimes out of fear. In this case, I guess it's a bit of both." Their conversation was cut short by a rumbling sound that seemed to come from all around them. Small pieces of debris rained down from the tunnel ceiling, and both Zara and Dr. Chen instinctively crouched low. "Earthquake?" Zara asked, her voice tight with concern. Dr. Chen shook his head. "No, I don't think so. That felt more like an explosion." His expression grew grim. "They might be trying to collapse some of the tunnels to flush us out." The urgency of their situation renewed. They picked up their pace, moving as quickly as they dared through the treacherous terrain. Zara found herself marveling at Dr. Chen's ability to navigate the complex tunnel system, realizing that his knowledge might be the only thing keeping them alive. As they rounded a corner, Dr. Chen suddenly stopped, throwing out an arm to halt Zara. "Wake," he whispered, pointing ahead. In the beam of his headlamp, they could see that the tunnel ahead had partially collapsed, leaving only a narrow gap to squeeze through. "We don't have a choice," Zora said, eyeing the unstable-looking rubble. "We can't go back." Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "I'll go first. If it holds for me, you should be able to make it through." Zara watched anxiously as the human carefully maneuvered through the gap, wincing at every shift of the debris. When he finally made it to the other side, he turned back, extending a hand to help her through. As Zara began to squeeze through the opening, her alien physiology making the task even more challenging, they heard shouts echoing from the tunnel behind them. Their pursuers were getting closer. "Hurry," Dr. Chen urged, his voice tight with tension. With a final push, Zara made it through the gap, just as the sound of footsteps grew louder. Without a word, Dr. Chen grabbed a small device from his pack and tossed it towards the rubble. As they ran down the tunnel, Zara heard a small explosion behind them, followed by the sound of more debris falling. "What was that?" she asked between breaths as they ran. "Small explosive charge," Dr. Chen replied. "Part of my research equipment for setting up monitoring stations. Figured it might come in handy to block the path behind us." Zara was once again impressed by the human's quick thinking and adaptability. Despite the dire circumstances, she found herself grateful to have him as an ally. As they continued their flight through the tunnels, the pursuit behind them grew more distant. However, both Zara and Dr. Chen knew they couldn't keep running forever. They needed a plan. "There should be an old emergency exit not far from here," Dr. Chen said as they paused to catch their breath. "If we can reach it, we might be able to surface far enough away to avoid immediate detection." Zara nodded, trusting in the human's knowledge of the terrain. As they set off again, she found herself reflecting on the strange turn of events that had led her to this moment. Stranded on an alien world, fleeing from unknown pursuers alongside a member of a species she had only just encountered. It was like something out of the adventure stories she had enjoyed as a child, only far more terrifying and exhilarating in reality. After what felt like hours of navigating through the twisting tunnels, they finally reached the emergency exit Dr. Chen had mentioned. It was an old, rusted ladder leading up to a heavy metal hatch. "This should put us out in a remote area of the forest," Dr. Chen explained as he began to climb. "With any luck, we'll be far enough from their search perimeter to buy us some time." As they emerged from the hatch, the cool night air was a shock after the stuffy confines of the mine. Zara took a deep breath, her alien lungs still struggling somewhat with Earth's atmosphere, but grateful for the fresh air nonetheless. Dr. Chen quickly scanned their surroundings, his experienced eyes picking out landmarks in the darkness. "We're about 10 miles from my research station," he said. "There's an old forest ranger cabin not far from here. It's been abandoned for years, but it might provide some shelter while we figure out our next move." As they set off through the forest, Zara found herself marveling at the alien beauty of Earth's wilderness. The way moonlight filtered through the leaves, the chorus of nocturnal creatures, the rich sense of soil and vegetation. It was all so different from her home world, yet undeniably alive in a way that stirred something deep within her. "Alex," she said softly as they walked, "I want to thank you for everything you've done. You've risked so much to help me, a complete stranger, an alien, no less." Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment before responding. "You know, when I became a scientist, I always dreamed of a moment like this. First contact, the chance to learn about life beyond our world. I never imagined it would happen like this, but I couldn't turn my back on such an incredible opportunity, or on someone in need, regardless of what planet they're from." His words warmed Zara, reinforcing her growing respect for this human and his species. As they continued their journey through the night, both alien and human knew that their adventure was far from over. The hunt was still on, and the true test of their unlikely alliance was yet to come. But for now, as they made their way towards temporary safety, there was a shared sense of cautious optimism. Together, combining Zora's advanced knowledge with Dr. Chen's understanding of Earth and human ingenuity, they just might have a chance at survival, and perhaps even more. Revelations and betrayals. The old forest ranger cabin loomed before them, a dark silhouette against the pre-dawn sky. Dr. Chen approached cautiously, years of field experience making him wary of any signs of recent occupation. Finding none, he beckoned Zara forward. "It's not much," he said as they entered the musty interior, "but it should keep us hidden for a while." Zara's 4 eyes scanned the cabin, taking in the rustic furnishings and layer of dust covering everything. "It's perfect," she said with genuine gratitude. After their harrowing escape, any shelter felt like luxury. As Dr. Chen secured the cabin, Zara sank onto an old chair, her alien body finally succumbing to exhaustion. The adrenaline that had kept her going was fading, leaving her acutely aware of every ache and pain from her crash landing and subsequent flight. We should be safe here for a little while, Dr. Chen said, returning from his check of the perimeter. But we need to figure out our next move. Those people chasing us, they're not going to give up easily. Zara nodded, her expression grave. I've been thinking about that. Alex, I need to tell you something. Something that might explain why they're so determined to find me. Dr. Chen sat down across from her, his face a mix of curiosity and concern. I'm listening. Taking a deep breath, Zara began to explain. My mission here wasn't just simple exploration. I'm part of an advanced team, sent to assess Earth's readiness for official first contact. The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as he processed this information. You mean, there are more of you out there, watching us? Zara nodded. We've been observing Earth for some time. Your species' rapid technological advancement has caught the attention of the galactic community. But there's debate about whether humanity is ready for the knowledge that comes with official contact. Dr. Chen leaned back, running a hand through his hair. That's a lot to take in. But it still doesn't explain why someone would be hunting you so aggressively. I'm getting to that, Zora continued. During my observations, I discovered something. A group within your government, or perhaps working alongside it, that seems to already be aware of extraterrestrial life. They've been suppressing evidence, manipulating events to keep the general population unaware. A conspiracy. Dr. Chen's voice was skeptical, but his expression showed he was considering the possibility. More than that, Zara said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, I found indications that they might have acquired alien technology. Reverse engineered it, perhaps. If that's true, it could explain how they were able to detect my ship's crash so quickly. The weight of this revelation settled over them both. Dr. Chen stood, pacing the small confines of the cabin as he thought. If what you're saying is true, it changes everything. The implications for humanity, for our understanding of our place in the universe. His words were cut short by a sudden noise outside, the unmistakable sound of a vehicle approaching. Both Zara and Dr. Chen froze, exchanging alarmed glances. How could they have found us so quickly? Zara whispered, her heart's racing. Dr. Chen's face had gone pale. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small device. They couldn't have, he said, his voice tight. Unless. Realization dawned on Zara as she looked at the device in Dr. Chen's hand. You have a tracker, she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and betrayal. The human's expression was a storm of emotions. Guilt, fear, determination. It's not what you think, he said quickly. I activated it as a failsafe, in case we got separated. I never intended. His explanation was cut short as the cabin door burst open. Armed figures in dark uniforms swarmed in, weapons trained on both Zora and Dr. Chen. Dr. Alexander Chen, a commanding voice called out. Step away from the alien. You've done your job. We'll take it from here. The betrayal hit Zora like a physical blow. She looked at Dr. Chen, searching his face for any sign that this was all a misunderstanding. But the guilt in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. As the armed agents moved to secure her, Zara felt a mix of emotions she had never experienced before. Anger, hurt, and a profound sense of disappointment. She had begun to believe in the potential of humanity, in the goodness she had seen in Dr. Chen. Now, it all felt like a cruel illusion. I'm sorry, Dr. Chen said, his voice barely audible over the commotion. I didn't know it would be like this. I thought I was doing the right thing. Zara met his gaze one last time as the agents led her away. In that moment, she saw genuine regret in his eyes, but it did little to soothe the sting of betrayal. As she was escorted out of the cabin and into a waiting vehicle, Zara's mind raced. Everything she had learned about Earth and its inhabitants, every preconception she had formed, was now thrown into question. The human capacity for deception, it seemed, was as remarkable as their capacity for kindness. But as the vehicle began to move, taking her to an unknown destination. Zara made a silent vow. She would not give up. Whatever trials lay ahead, whatever secrets these humans sought to extract from her, she would face them with the resilience she had learned from her time on this harsh, beautiful world. The hunt was over, but Zara's true test was just beginning. And somewhere deep inside, a small part of her still held on to hope that there was more to humanity, and to Dr. Chen than this betrayal suggested. In the face of the unknown, it was all she had left. Humanity's stand. The rhythmic hum of engines filled the air as the convoy of vehicles wound its way through the pre-dawn darkness. Inside one of these nondescript black SUVs, Zara sat in silent contemplation, her alien form secured by restraints she couldn't begin to comprehend. Across from her, Dr. Alex Chen sat with his head bowed, unable to meet her gaze. The betrayal still stung, a raw wound that throbbed with each passing moment. Yet, as Zara observed the human she had come to trust, she sensed a complexity to his emotions that gave her pause. There was guilt there, certainly, but also a resolve that hadn't been present before. Why? Zara finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Chen looked up, his eyes filled with a storm of emotions. "I thought I was protecting humanity," he said, his voice hoarse. "When they approached me, told me about the potential threat of alien contact, I believed I was doing the right thing. And now?" Zora pressed, searching his face for any sign of the ally she had come to know. A small, bitter smile crossed Dr. Chen's face. "Now I realize I might have been on the wrong side all along." Before Zara could respond, the convoy came to an abrupt halt. The door beside her opened, revealing a vast, underground facility carved into the side of a mountain. As she was led out of the vehicle, Zara's scientific mind couldn't help but marvel at the scale of the operation. This was no hastily assembled black site. This facility spoke of years of preparation, of resources beyond what she had believed possible for Earth's current level of technology. Dr. Chen was escorted alongside her, his status seemingly somewhere between asset and prisoner. As they were led deeper into the facility, passing through layers of security that grew increasingly advanced, Zara began to understand the true scope of what she had stumbled upon. They finally arrived at a large, circular room, dominated by a massive holographic display. Figures in both military and civilian dress moved about with purpose, their conversations a low murmur of technical jargon and strategic planning. A tall, imposing woman approached them, her piercing gaze fixed on Zara. "Welcome to Earth," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "I'm Director Evelyn Reeves. You've led us on quite a chase, but now it's time for some answers." Zara straightened, drawing on every ounce of her diplomatic training. "I am Zora, xenobiologist and advanced scout of the Galactic Confederation. I come in peace, seeking to assess Earth's readiness for official first contact." Director Reeves' laugh was cold and sharp. "Oh, we're well past the point of official first contact, my dear. We've known about your kind for decades. What we want to know is why you're really here." As the interrogation began, Zara found herself locked in a battle of wits, unlike any she had experienced before. The humans' questions were probing, their knowledge of galactic affairs far beyond what should have been possible. It became clear that this group had indeed acquired advanced technology, and they were hungry for more. Hours passed, the questioning relentless. Zara held firm, revealing nothing that could endanger her people or the delicate balance of the galaxy. But as fatigue set in, she began to fear that her resolve might not be enough. It was then that something unexpected happened. Dr. Chen, who had been silently observing from the sidelines, suddenly spoke up. "This is wrong," he said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We're supposed to be scientists, explorers. We're betraying everything humanity stands for by treating her like this." Director Reeves turned on him, her eyes flashing with anger. "You forget your place, Dr. Chen. This is about the survival of our species." "No," Chen replied, his voice growing stronger. "This is about power. about a few people deciding the fate of our entire world. He turned to address the room at large. Think about what we're doing here. We have a chance for peaceful contact, for advancement beyond our wildest dreams, and we're throwing it away because of fear and greed. His words seemed to strike a chord with some of the personnel in the room. Murmurs of dissent began to ripple through the crowd. Zara watched in amazement as the human she had fought lost to her began to rally his own kind to her defense. What followed was a heated debate that would determine the fate not just of Zara, but potentially of Earth's place in the galactic community. Dr. Chen, emboldened by his change of heart, argued passionately for transparency, for reaching out to the global scientific community, for embracing the opportunity that Zara's presence represented. As the argument raged on, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. On the central holographic display, multiple objects appeared, descending rapidly from orbit. "It's an invasion," Director Reeves shouted, but Zara quickly corrected her. "No," she said, her voice filled with a mix of relief and apprehension. "It's a rescue mission. My people coming to find me." In the chaos that followed, Dr. Chen made a decisive move. He released Zora's restraints, standing beside her as the facility erupted into frantic activity. "What happens now?" he asked, his eyes meeting hers. Zora looked at Dr. Chen, seeing the genuine remorse and determination in his eyes. "Now," she said, her voice steady, "we have a chance to do this right." As the facility buzzed with frantic activity, Zora raised her voice to address the room. "Listen to me. This doesn't have to end in conflict. My people are not here to invade or conquer. They're here because one of their own was in danger. How you respond in this moment will determine the future of your species' relationship with the galactic community." Her words seemed to cut through the panic, causing even Director Reeves to pause. In that moment of hesitation, Dr. Chen seized the opportunity. "Director," he said, his voice firm but respectful, "we have a choice to make. We can continue down this path of secrecy and aggression, or we can take a leap of faith. Zara and her people represent an opportunity for humanity to grow, to learn, to become part of something greater than ourselves." The tension in the room was palpable as Director Reeves considered their words. Outside, the sounds of the approaching rescue ships grew louder. Finally, the director spoke. "And if we choose to trust you," she said, addressing Zara, "what assurances can you give us? How do we know this isn't the prelude to an invasion?" Zara stood tall, her four eyes meeting the director's gaze unflinchingly. "Because if we wanted to invade, we would have done so long ago. My people value diversity, cooperation, and the exchange of knowledge. We seek to uplift species, not conquer them. But we also respect the right of species to develop at their own pace. That's why we've waited, watched, and evaluated." She gestured to the humans around her. "Look at what you've accomplished here. You've reversed engineered technology far beyond your current level of development. You've kept secrets that would shake the foundations of your society. Imagine what you could achieve if you directed that ingenuity, that determination, towards joining the galactic community instead of hiding from it." Dr. Chen stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Zora. "Director, members of the council, we have a historic opportunity here. We can be the generation that brings humanity into a new age of exploration and discovery, or we can be the ones who let fear dictate our future." The room fell silent as everyone considered the weight of the moment. Then, slowly, voices began to speak up in support of Zara and Dr. Chen's plea. Scientists, engineers, even some of the military personnel argued for taking this chance. Director Reeves closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. When she opened them again, there was a new resolve in her gaze. "Very well," she said. "We'll do this your way, but if this goes wrong, it's on your heads." With that decision made, events moved quickly. Under Zara's guidance, the facility established communication with the approaching ships, assuring them that she was safe and negotiating for a peaceful meeting. As dawn broke over the mountain, a sleek alien craft descended into the valley before the hidden base. Zara, Dr. Chen, Director Reeves, and a small delegation walked out to meet it. The ship's doors opened, revealing beings similar to Zora, clearly of the same species, but each unique in their own way. The leader of the group, a dignified individual named San, stepped forward. "Zara," San said, relief evident in their voice. "We feared the worst when your ship crashed." Zara bowed slightly. "Thanks to the help of some remarkable humans, I survived. And I believe I've completed our mission in ways we never anticipated." She turned to introduce Dr. Chen and the others, explaining the events that had led to this moment. As the two groups began to interact, the tension slowly melted away, replaced by curiosity and cautious optimism. Dr. Chen watched in awe as human and alien scientists began to exchange ideas, each group marveling at the other's achievements and unique perspectives. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Zora looking at him, her alien features arranged in what he now recognized as a smile. "You did it," she said softly. "You showed the best of what humanity has to offer." Chen shook his head. "We did it. Your faith in us, even after everything, it made this possible." As the sun rose higher, casting its light over the historic scene, both Zara and Dr. Chen knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Explaining this to the wider world, navigating the complexities of integrating Earth into the galactic community, and dealing with those who would resist this new reality. But in this moment, watching humans and aliens come together in the spirit of discovery and cooperation, they felt a profound sense of hope. Earth had taken its first real steps into a larger universe, and the future, while uncertain, was bright with possibility. The story of the alien girl trapped on Earth's deadly terrain had transformed into something far greater, a tale of two species coming together, overcoming their fears and differences to forge a new path forward. It was a testament to the resilience of life, the power of understanding, and the limitless potential of cooperation across the stars. As Zara and Dr. Chen stood side by side, watching the dawn of a new era for humanity, they shared a silent understanding. Their unlikely alliance had not just ensured their survival, it had changed the course of history for both their peoples. And this, they knew, was only the beginning of an adventure that would span the cosmos.